Hello and welcome into the Hawkeye Headquarters weekly podcast. Evan Denton alongside Joel Kellar. A big week for both Iowa women's and men's basketball. We're going to start with the ladies, though. They've now won 2 straight games. They beat Washington and then go on the road to beat Nebraska 80-67. Joel, this team has found its footing after the whole McCabe injury.
Yeah, let's play all of the games at 11 a.m. on a Monday, please. I think they play really well at that time for whatever reason.
And now in that game against Nebraska, Ava Hayden had her career high 27 points, but she was 12 of 15. Very efficient. She is a dark horse for all Big Ten first team, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the impact that she's had on this team, especially with some of the missing pieces now with McCabe, Hayden was a big reason why they got back on track. But she's always she has moved herself. She's the #1 option for the Hawks. So why not? I mean, they're one of the best teams in the Big Ten, so it makes sense.
They are, and the NCAA just announced their top 16 overall seeds. Iowa's currently a 3 seed. Is that accurate in your opinion?
I think they're giving us some grace right there.
Yeah.
So that's pretty nice because not only does, 3 seed, you get a host, but they also have some room to wiggle before they get moved off that hosting line. So, it's got to be a comforting thought. I'm sure they're not focused on it, but it's got to creep into Jan Jensen's mind a little bit.
Knock on all the wood here in the studio. Like you said, they have some grace. I think there's a very strong chance. I'm going to say a 70% chance right now that Iowa is at home for the first and hopefully second round of the NCAA tournament. Yep. A big part of that's going to be the continued strong play of Taylor Stremlow. All right, she had a career high 17 points against Nebraska. She was out of her mind from 3-point range, and she is very cool, calm, collected in that starting role.
Yeah, we were talking about the discussion between should we throw Stremlow in there or Addie Deal when McCabe went down, and originally it was Addie Deal, and Stremlow, I don't know how much that motivated her or being looked over for that starting spot or what happened, but she looked good with that starting lineup, and the Hawks were able to work around probably a less impactful bench from a rotational standpoint. So I like it. It fits well for her.
I think she is the energy and spark plug of this team, Taylor.
Yeah.
She might be for the next 2 years as well for this program, but you can tell she brings the juice every single time she's on the court for Iowa, and I feel like that was missing. And no shade towards Addie Deal, but just Taylor Stremlow, you can feel the energy, the enthusiasm from the start, and that's why I think Iowa's won the last 2 games.
Yeah, she has a lot of Kate Martin vibes, and I kind of thought that last year, too, even when she wasn't getting too much playing time. But anytime she's out in the court, it's they play very similarly. They can shoot from 3. They're not going to be, one of the leaders from 3 on the season like Chit Chat is, but. Yeah, they play very high motor. They'll make the winning plays. They know their role, and when you need them to step up scoring-wise, they can do that.
And typically around this time of year, there's a lot of talk about freshmen hitting the freshman wall, all right? And we've kind of seen that with Addie Deal, all right? She came in with a lot of hype, a lot of high expectations, maybe a little bit too much. But over her last 4 games, Joel, she scored a total of 13 points. She's shooting 5 for 25 from the field and just 1 from 11 from 3-point range. How does Iowa get her out of that funk?
I think you just got to tell her, keep shooting the ball. When you have the ball and you have a shot, take it. That's the only way you're going to get out of the funk. And we've seen freshmen hit the wall all the time, right? Ava Hayden did last year, but you know what happened? It got the tournament time, and she's a competitor, she's a winner, and she showed out. And she's a big reason why Iowa had a pretty solid run in the Big Ten tournament that almost got them to a spot where they could host a game after kind of for the last 5 years, a lackluster regular season.
Yeah.
So,
I can't imagine being in Jan Jensen's shoes where you can only have so many coffee talks with your player before you say, hey, we believe in you, but we need to see some production. And I feel as if Addie Deal, she's a very mentally tough player, but she just needs to see the ball go into the basket. I know that sounds very simplistic, but at some point she needs to find that switch because one of her fellow freshmen, Journey Houston, is playing out of her mind recently. Averaging 8 points a game over the last 4 and getting rebounds left and right. She's been a very big spark plug off the bench for Iowa.
She has, and that's been needed, especially with Stremlow going up into the starting lineup. You got to give those starters breaks at some point.
Right.
And, so you need people to step in and feel that whole journey. Houston has done it phenomenally. I mean, this is a team that doesn't have a lot of height, so she's kind of forced to play more in the post more consistently. And you know, she may not be the tallest,
right,
4 or 5 out there, but she gets the job done. She knows how to score really well, and she knows where to find the rebounds.
And it might be weird calling a 4-star prospect a hidden gem, but the fact that she went through a major knee injury during the latter part of her high school career, maybe Journey Houston went a little under the radar in terms of a national recruit, but she's definitely carving out a big-time role over in Iowa City. Another big player, it's actually the shortest player on the team, all right? Chit Chat Wright, in her first year, is averaging 13 points, 5 assists. She is really the little engine that runs this team, and she just continues to impress me each and every game. Just her excitement, her three-point shooting ability. She's found her role with Iowa.
She really has, and she fits really well with this program. I'm excited to see her as she grows, you know, with the next couple of years that she has of eligibility. And she's became like the key piece, I think, of what's turned Iowa from, okay, they're a tournament team to, okay, they could host. They probably at this point will host. And, you know, it's been great. And you had the opportunity to talk to her and get to know her a little more on the personal side.
My teammates, the coaches, everything just felt natural, nothing forced.
Chit Chat Wright has quickly left her mark on the Iowa program, bringing the crowd to its feet on a nightly basis inside Carver Hawkeye Arena.
Literally, before we run out, I just take a moment to look out, just hear the crowd, feel the energy, feel everything.
She has made at least 2 3-pointers in 9 straight games.
She just is one of our best scoring punches. But in her case, she had to sacrifice her pass-first mentality. I said, if we don't shift that, and you're one of our most efficient and pure shooters, a few people are smooth coming off that ball screen.
Being an aggressive guard, because I like to pass a lot and get my teammates open, that kind of brings me like fulfillment and happiness because I like to see other people happy. So
she is a playmaker on the court, and also making moves off the court as a business administration major.
Picked it because I think I just wanted to get in that realm of just being a businesswoman. Also, I have my own business called No Luck. It's a clothing brand. I have t-shirts, socks, and I want to really expand it into like sweatshirts, sweatpants, and also beanies because that's like my favorite thing. So
the ball is clearly in Chit Chat's court.
Taking it one game at a time, not trying to look ahead, just making sure that we handle what's in front of us first before we try to get to the next game. That would be a big emphasis on what we need to focus on.
Did you know that she's a business administration major?
I did not know that. That's interesting.
I found that out. She and her uncle have a clothing line called No Luck. All right.
Okay.
And so it kind of makes sense where she is the point guard, kind of running the offense, similar to running a business. You know, being a businesswoman. And you can tell that communication is a very big part of her personality, both on and off the court. And I feel like that has really contributed to her being a very good presence so far. But she had to get used to the whole Iowa nice philosophy, all right? Because she's from Atlanta, Georgia, where she told me people walk down the street, heads are down, they don't acknowledge you. But you come to Iowa City in the Midwest, people say, hello, how's your day going? And that was a little different for her initially.
Yeah, I can get that. It's like, yeah, you're walking to class and you're probably throwing on headphones, earbuds, just listening to music and want to do that. But anytime you see someone you know or someone that, a mutual of someone you know that you know, you got to stop and say hi and ask them how
At
they're
least a
doing.
head nod, right?
At least a head nod, probably like a wave at a minimum, low key.
So I briefly lived on the East Coast out in New Jersey, and I'm originally from the Midwest. I quickly learned that on the East Coast, it's just head down, no contact whatsoever. And I felt like, wow, I'm a real outsider here. So I kind of can identify with what Chit Chat was going through, going from Atlanta into Iowa City. But she's definitely become a fan favorite. I mean, we've talked about all the Shoot That CHIT shirts that we see around Carver Hawkeye. And she's been a big part of why Iowa's now won 20 games in at least 10 straight seasons.
Yeah, she's quickly becoming a fan favorite, and she's so fun to watch, too.
And so obviously a big part of that 20-plus wins in 10 straight years was the one and only Caitlin Clark, all right? We just passed the 2-year mark of the game in which Caitlin Clark broke the all-time scoring record against Michigan, and then she proceeded to drop 49 points that game. I was there. Joel, were you there for that game?
I was there. I was actually doing training down in the depths of Carver Hawkeye, but we ended up coming up for the first quarter because we knew it was probably going to happen pretty early.
Yep.
So I got to see it. Went back down the training after it all happened, and they did the whole in-game like ceremony thing for it real quick, and then went back up, caught I think fourth quarter. So I got to see the two most important moments of that game.
It's been 2 years, but my ears are still ringing from that crowd
Yeah.
pop. I mean, that's one of the loudest environments I've ever been in. When she knocked down that 3-point shot to break the record. What have been some other notable crowd pops here in Iowa that you've witnessed or that you've experienced?
Okay, so staying on the hard court, I would say the first one that came to mind, also Caitlin Clark, you got the Indiana buzzer beater.
Okay.
That one was phenomenal. I mean, and I'll get to the other part of that weekend. It was an all-time weekend for Iowa basketball, regular season-wise, and that one capped it off. It was, I think it was like an 11 o'clock game, so crowd kind of showed up, and it was like, okay, everyone's a little tired.
And game day was here too for that.
Yeah, game day. It was a big game, and it was so fun. It was so fun, and that was probably the first like true like okay like this is a program changer moment for me, because that was the same year that they went to the championship for the first time, and I think that's when I really like bought this is a team that can do it. Yeah. The other one that I instantly thought about was the day before. It was with the men's team, and they were playing Michigan State. They went down 13 points with 1 minute and 30 seconds to go. A timeout happened. Fred McCaffrey stared down one of the refs. It's a historic moment in college basketball.
It is, yes.
And then when Peyton Stanford hit a three with like 3 seconds on the clock to force OT, it wasn't even a full Carver Hawkeye, but it went insane. And I was like, that was probably the last like good memory of the Fred McCaffrey era.
I think you're right,
Was that game? I mean, they had a ranked win the next season, but it wasn't anything to write home about. This was a true moment. Stanford knocking down a contested three.
I had forgotten about that, so thank you for reminding me of that moment. I think my go-to crowd pop noise from Caitlin Clark was her last ever game inside Carver Hawkeye against West Virginia in that second round of the NCAA tournament. There was a lot of tension late in that game, but she knocked down, I believe it was a late three, and the place went absolutely insane, all right?
Yeah.
And just the sights of her and her teammates trying to walk off the court, that was absolute chaos and bedlam for them trying to get to the locker room. But just the ongoing roar of Carver Hawkeye, I will never forget that. My other moment, and this might be triggering, all right? We're going to the football field.
Yeah.
Cooper DeJean had a pretty legendary punt return against Minnesota that got called back.
That he did.
The invalid fair catch, if you will. But when he made a cut on the Minnesota sideline back across the field, if you go back and watch the film, the crowd noise inside of Kinnick Stadium was off the charts. All right,
Yeah.
I have before the Mark Gronowski Oregon touchdown run, that was the loudest I've ever heard Kinnick Stadium in my life.
That was, I think, as someone who was in the stadium, I was in the student section for that one. That was more celebration than like for the Mark Gronowski touchdown than really I think any touchdown that I've seen.
Yep.
It was people were falling over each other. You can't stand on those tiny little bleachers, and you're just like hugging random people, and then 30 seconds later, oh, there's a flag. What are they looking at? And then it was just chaos. People throwing stuff on the field.
Why waste good beer though? That's my thing. Why do people throw beer cans? You don't waste beer.
I think you shouldn't throw anything on the field, right? But the people throwing the water bottles probably made the best financial decision.
I would agree with
there.
that. All right, so the Iowa women are off to play Purdue on the road in a few hours, looking for a third straight win. Let's go over to the men's basketball team, all right? They had a very big week, but before we get to that, they had their first ever sellout in the Ben McCollum era. And Joel, you did a story about how the energy is really coming back into the program, both from the players and the marketing side.
Yeah, the marketing team has put a ton of effort into it. They said they kind of changed up their plan for the season when they figured out the coaching change was going to happen, and they knew they needed to kind of reinvigorate men's basketball. I mean, we saw they couldn't fill that stadium last year. They did it one time the year prior, and it was it was half full for most games. So it's obviously worked, and they took a lot of initiatives that they had for other sports and just moved it to men's basketball. They didn't need to do as many giveaways for women's basketball because people were showing up.
Right.
So,
Yep.
so stuff like that, and it's worked out. I think they've reinvigorated this crowd, and I can just tell talking to friends back at Iowa, talking to other Iowa fans that I know, people care a little bit more about Iowa men's basketball now. They'll make the trip out, whether it's an hour from the Quad Cities, hour 45 from Des Moines. The trip is worth it now, and that's a great sign for McCollum.
I mean, whether it's $2 beers, $3 pretzels,
Yeah.
free gold ties to look like Ben McCollum, their marketing team definitely knew what they were doing, and it's really paid off. But not quite for the Purdue game, all right? The first sellout, they end up losing by 21 points, the largest loss of the year. It was the bad, the worse, and the even uglier, if you will. There was no good in that game.
Nope.
How did that game go south so quickly?
It was just Iowa couldn't. Classic, they couldn't get things going at the start.
Yeah.
And I think Purdue kind of sent them with the death hammer with the nearly back-to-back posters and on Cooper Koch and was it Howard, I
I
think?
think it was Howard, yeah.
Yeah, so they got baptized.
They did.
By Purdue. And Purdue just kind of showed how you can expose this Iowa team with some height.
Yeah.
And Iowa, they have to collapse on these tall guys, these 7-footers. Well, hey, that leaves their insanely good shooters wide open. So that's kind of what it was. Sturts couldn't really buy a bucket there for a while. So it was a mix of bad offense, getting into a slump, and then Purdue doing their thing.
So Iowa's chance of getting a marquee win goes down the drain in a blink of an eye. And I think Bennett Sturts summed it up best. He said, quote, "We got punked in that game." And I mean, he's not wrong.
Completely right.
Completely accurate. But you know what? This team has some fight, and I think that comes from their head coach, Ben McCollum, because they bounce back and they take down top 10 Nebraska 57-52, hold Nebraska 27 points under their season average. And of course, there was a court storm. Our camera was not damaged at all. I don't know how. My first ever experience as a court storm as a reporter. A massive win for Iowa.
A massive win. And there's been some discourse online. Should they have stormed? Should they not have? Technically, they were favored.
Right.
I would normally say probably no if you're the favorite. But this is the first big win of the Ben McCollum era. This is a statement, and I think storming the court is worth it in that sense. And it's still a top 10 team, so hey, I love it. And this is something that you can build on.
Iowa's first ranked win in 2 years. Since you were a student.
Yeah.
Unreal. I mean, Bennett Sturts, 25 points. If I can be a little picky for a minute, I thought Iowa went to too much iso ball down the stretch, and luckily their defense was playing top-notch. Tavion Banks. Bennett Sturts took a challenge in trying to guard Price Stanford. He did a very good job with that. But I think that formula will not work down the road and, hopefully into the NCAA tournament. But a win is a win, and you'd rather learn from a win than a loss. And my goodness, that blackout, it wasn't a sellout, but it felt like it.
Yeah. It sounded like it on TV, too, and that's a big part. I think it kind of shows, remember the Virginias of the past, where it's you score 55 points, 65 points. I think that is a path that Iowa can take now going into tournament season. Focus on the defensive end, and if they, like you said, spread the ball a little bit more around, run some better plays there at the end game, and I think that's a good recipe there for winning some games, especially when Bennett starts forcing 3 offensive fouls, 2 steals, 2 blocks, and he's still your top offensive guy. So.
And I don't mean to be rude to Nebraska. That's not what I expected to see.
No.
Right? Because when they were shorthanded against Michigan on the road, they took Michigan, the #1 team in the country, down to the wire. All right? That's not what I saw in person. And maybe give more credit to Iowa for taking Nebraska out of their offensive sets. But no, that's not the 20-0 Nebraska.
Yeah, and I really hope it's the student section maybe had an impact on their top shooter, Price Stanford. They were keeping the pressure on him all game, and he said in post game it didn't affect him, but it kind of looked like it did.
Now, see, I'm glad you brought that up, Joel, because Price Stanford is a former Hawkeye. Everyone knows that. He got heckled left and right. It's one thing to boo a guy during the starting lineups or when he touches the ball, but when you're yelling profanity at him and his family is there, come on, did the Iowa student section go a bit too far?
I mean, probably. You know, they say like once a Hawkeye, always a Hawkeye.
Right.
And they say that for every team, but I think we're starting to see the lines are getting a little blurry there with the NIL, the transferring, and everything. So there's like once you graduate a Hawkeye, you're always a Hawkeye.
Right. I mean, you got to remember that Price, he left Iowa after a coaching change.
Yeah.
Which
yeah.
is very understandable. But, you know, Iowa held him to 13 points, and they were able to, I guess, more or less slow him down, and that was really what led them to the victory over Nebraska. This is the final 5 games for Iowa now. They go at Wisconsin, home against Ohio State, at Penn State, home against #1 Michigan, and then they finish on the road at Nebraska. If they go 2-3, that's good enough to make the tournament, right?
Yeah, don't slip up against Ohio State and Penn State, and you're in my opinion.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, how favorable, and 10 being absolute, Iowa's back in the tournament, what are you saying?
10.
Giving it a 10.
10.
All right.
They're in. They are in. I don't see how they miss, even if they lose maybe one to Ohio State or Penn State. If they lose one of them, you still have the Big Ten tournament. I think they'll win that first game easily. And, you know, now you have that big win against Nebraska on your resume. That's going to pay dividends, I think. I think they're in.
And all of a sudden, Wisconsin's not looking as tough. They just got blown out on the road by Ohio State, which maybe Iowa can get another win this Sunday in Madison.
Can they string together a 4-win winning streak going into senior day? I don't know. It's a possibility.
Possibility.
Knock on wood.
Yeah. All right, let's do a quick 2-minute drill. Football talk is back very briefly. The Big Ten, for some reason, wants to expand the playoff to 24 teams, even though they've won the last 3 straight national titles. First of all, Joel, when you saw that headline, what was going through your mind?
I was like, that's stunning. Like,
Yeah.
wow, why? That's so many games, so many teams. I don't know. I don't see it.
And so it would be the 23 best teams plus a group of 6 representative, no automatic qualifiers, all right? The top 8 teams get byes. The first round of games are all on campus. The second round are also all on campus. So the top teams are guaranteed at least one home game. It's too many games.
Too many games. I like the amount of on-campus games.
Right.
But just do that with the 12 team.
Yeah.
That's so, it's weird. I mean, are we just getting rid of conference championships? Because that doesn't mean anything anymore.
See, I didn't see that part in the outline. I kind of hope that they do.
Yeah. 'Cause, I mean, why? Like, take this year. Indiana, Ohio State, 1 versus 2. Why are they playing? Risking injuries when they're going to end up with a bye anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And so the playoff would start in mid-December. The title game would be then in mid-January. So it's about a month between the very start and the end. It's not as bad as I thought it was going to be, but still that's too long in my opinion. Initially I thought the perfect number was going to be 8 teams, but 12 has grown on me. 16 is too many in my opinion.
Yeah.
Keep it at 12 and make that second round on campus games. Forget about Michigan, for example, playing Ohio State out in, say, Miami, Florida. No, keep that game in the Midwest.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the 12 and 18 works because everyone's pointing to Miami as a 10 seed, right?
Yeah.
The ACC's got to fix their issue, and they need to just put the top teams, regardless of division, into their championship. And then Miami would have been there. They probably would have won. They would have ended up probably a 5-4 seed maybe if they won the ACC. So that's how you fix that. And then other than that, I mean, I'm sorry, no 20 seed is going to work its way into the final 8 probably.
Right.
Definitely not, I can say that confidently, they're not going to the semifinals. There's a clear disparity here between teams when you really look at it.
So imagine being a head coach of a team that doesn't make a 24-team field. You have to go and talk to your AD like, hey, please believe in me for 1 or 2 more years. I'm right on the cusp. He or she can then turn to you and say, well, you didn't make a 24 team. Like we need to see progress and results on the field. I mean, I feel like if that actually happens, it puts a lot more pressure on the coaches to be good consistently.
Yeah.
Or else they're going to be on the hot seat year in and year out.
Yeah, or even just win in the first round too. Or for the Michigans, Ohio States, and everything, if you don't get a bye, is that enough? If you go 3 years without a bye, are you gone from the program? It does. It puts a lot of pressure on them.
Absolutely. Well, we are now less than a month away from March Madness. It's the best time of the year. We have big-time games for both Iowa and men's and women's basketball coming up next week. We'll have a lot more on next week's edition of the Hawkeye Headquarters Weekly Podcast. Evan Denton alongside Joel Kellar. Have a great rest of your week.